Welcome to episode number 185 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for you marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. We are recording live on YouTube on April 28, 2017, with plenty to talk about this week, including the alien hotline, a sexy rhino goes vinyl. It's viral. Why do I always say vinyl?
There you go.
Sexy rhino goes viral. Recruiting Easter eggs, friend talk, beer talk, vintage guitars reviewed, all the news that's fit to snap, a Star Wars test drive, commuter Barbie, Truth Is campaign, United killed the Wabbit, LinkedIn integrations, Twitter bot infestation, and plenty more. We started off with best stories of the week in BL. What was the best story of the week?
Well, we're going to try and get through this in approximately 30 minutes. I thought the best story in many a week was that Pope Francis gave a surprise TED Talk the other night. He's, first of all, not only is the only Pope to ever do that, and probably the only Pope who has his own webcam, but he just was so remarkable. He made a beautiful and powerful message. He said a single individual is enough for hope to exist, and that individual can be you. And he said that people of all faiths, to those who have power as well as those who don't, he spoke about how we need equality for all people, solidarity and tenderness need to prevail. He said, let us help each other. Remember, the other is not a statistic or a number. We all need each other. And then to make his point, he said that something about how it related to drinking gin on an empty stomach, which would make you harm other people and perhaps yourself. And, you do have to wonder, how does the Pope know about drinking gin on an empty stomach? But anyway, that is what he said. And he made this whole, analogy between what needed to be done and why you shouldn't drink gin on an empty stomach. It was just really kind of funny. But, I mean, he's such a beautiful man. And everything he said was so what we need to hear and do. So thanks.
Well, I mean, both the Pope and TED Talks inspire people. It's their source of inspiration. But plenty of people were inspired in a different way this week. This is from a BBC story. The Department of Homeland Security opened up a new office called Voice. It's quote unquote to serve the needs of crime victims and their families who have been impacted, I hate that word, by crimes. Yeah, right, exactly. By crimes committed by removable criminal aliens, end quote. So included in this new office is a hotline that victims can call for support and assistance. It was set up under executive order on immigration that Trump signed in January, but Twitter responded to this news. And three ways they responded. Haunted Applebee's Twitter account said, the number for Trump's hotline to report quote-unquote criminal aliens is 855-48-VOICE. Please do not call this number to describe plots of X-Files episodes. Darth Hobo said, so they introduced the alien hotline on Alien Day. I hope Sigourney Weaver called. And Stephen Taton said, just called an alien attack from planet Voltron to the ICE voice hotline. So U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency responded to the Twitter outburst with a quote that said, there are certainly more constructive ways to make one's opinions heard than to prevent legitimate victims of crime from receiving the information and resources they seek because their lines are tied up by hoax callers, they told BuzzFeed News.
Did they go blah, blah, blah after that?
Exactly, yeah. There is one purpose for this hotline, to turn people against one another. That's the reason they put it up. They didn't put it up to support victims of crime by immigrants. It's nice to know that hilarious ridicule is an effective form of activism. So let's just be clear. If you have been abducted by aliens, you should call 855-48-VOICE.
And if you know anyone who's been abducted by
Exactly.
aliens, by all means report that. They also were reporting that there was an alien in New York City who was using the taxpayer dollars, and that was Melania. And then they were calling and saying that there was an orange man with yellow hair wandering around Washington, D.C. in a bathrobe. I love that one the best. But I mean, it's just so not funny. Anyway, I was telling my father about it, and he said, well, you know, he said, anytime that he comes on the TV or they start to talk about him, I just turn it off. That's what I've been doing lately too. So on a much lighter note, or perhaps as light a note, the last rhino stud in the world joined Tinder. The last rhino stud joined Tinder to save his species. There's a place called Opajeda Conservatory, and it partnered with Ogilvy and Mather and Tinder, and they launched a campaign to raise awareness, and they call him the world's most eligible bachelor. His name is Sudan, and he's a modern-day unicorn because he's the only remaining northern white male rhino in the world. And the problem is, Sudan is getting old, and he's kind of lost interest in having sex with the two remaining white rhino females. And so what they're trying to raise $9 million for is artificial insemination so that they can continue the breed. And it turns out that he's 42, so like if he goes, there's really not going to be anybody else. So there's sort of a timetable on this. So what happens is you go to Tinder and you see his profile, and it says, I'm one of a kind. No, seriously, I'm the last white male rhino on Earth. I perform well under pressure. I like to eat grass and chill in the mud. No problems. 6 feet tall and 5,000 pounds, if that matters. And then when you swiped right on Tinder, you got directed to a donation page on Crowdwise, which immediately crashed. And but it told you that they needed the money for assistive reproduction techniques. And he said, I don't mean to be too forward, but the fate of my species literally depends on me. And so the campaign went viral. It crashed the page for the donations, but unfortunately, actually, they haven't reached anywhere near what they need. But the sad thing is that there are around 20,000 southern white rhinos, and they would be potentially able to carry Sudan's species-saving calves, but he needs this help. So it's just a brilliant not-for-profit campaign, and they're in Kenya, and they're the largest sanctuary for black rhinos in East Africa, and they're just wonderful. So somebody somebody tweeted, horny male seeks mate on Tinder, loves outdoors, 6 feet tall, and 5,000 pounds.
Well, that is very clever. I thought you were going to say they're trying to raise money for development of a rhino Viagra, but it turns out they're actually raising funds for artificial insemination, which is probably a lot smarter. But speaking of eggs, we talked about Easter eggs
Transition king.
Yeah, there you go. We talked about Easter eggs last week on episode 184. Be on socialmediashow.com/184.
How brands use Easter eggs.
Yep. And here's another example. And this one actually is very close to home for me. It's our sister agency, advertising agency, Martin Williams. They just redesigned their website. And last week, they launched it. And if you go to the homepage of martinwilliams.com, Martin Williams Advertising's website, and there's an Easter egg buried in plain sight on the homepage. So go to the homepage, and in order to see it, you need to find the white space on the homepage and right-click on the homepage and get the pop-up menu. And from the pop-up menu, choose View Source. This is the type of stuff that geeks like me, geeks like me do every day, to look at the code, the HTML code behind a web page. But you'll get the HTML code, and don't worry, it's not going to be scary code that you don't understand. What you'll see is a huge Martin Williams logo in ASCII text, and below that is a message that says, like digging through code, are you always curious? Contact us about development. jobs@martinwilliams.com. So it's a very, very clever recruiting tool. Brainchild of Jason Wynn, who is Martin Williams' Director of Creative Technologies. So I just had to give a shout out to that. And before we go on to the next one, BL, I want to say promotional message. If you're new to this podcast, if you're new to the Beyond Social Media Show podcast, please, and you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe to a podcast on your favorite channel. We're on iTunes, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Google Play Music, we're on Stitcher, we are on YouTube. But especially if you're on iTunes, subscribing there really helps us get found by more people. That's a critical mass of where most people find podcasts. So help us out and subscribe if you like what you hear.
Speaking of new technology, the New York Times has launched Snapchat Discover Daily. And Snapchat's new Discover section now has all the news that's fit to print, transformed into a edition on Snapchat that goes live at 6 o'clock every weekday morning, and it's really a very dramatic moment for all the news that fits to print, that's fit to print, and now fit to snap. And interesting that the Times is dedicating this type of resource to a younger, leaning app. And so you'll find the New York Times alongside Mashable, Self, Entertainment Weekly, and a whole bunch of other publishers. They're not the first newspaper on the platform, but they're dedicated to making sure that it's something that is opened by users. And so they might have a little bit of a secret weapon, because the Daily Mini, the small version of the crossword puzzle, is featured in the edition. And so the puzzle users are definitely going to be there. And what the Times social strategy editor said, when stories came out, I had this epiphany. New York Times reporters are storytellers, so New York Times could have a channel showing that. And having that kernel of a thought brought me to Snapchat, but it was definitely quite a journey, she said. So it took her until now to convince the Times, but they've started on Monday.
That's cool. Well, I mean, they are doing new things these days. Snapchat obviously being one of them, but another one is advertising. They recently started. I mean, they started with the Truth Is campaign, and they've extended that as well. This is from a creativity article by Christine Diaz. So that it's an extension of that Truth Is campaign, and the ad opens in Bartella, Iraq, with shots and still shots and camera clicks as the images, with a voiceover that describes what it's like to be under fire in a vehicle in Iraq, and what it's like to be in a vehicle that's hit by an IED. So you see more still photos, more clicks about the aftermath of an improvised explosive device explosion, and all the while you're assuming that the voiceover is soldiers, and it turns out that it's a New York Times photojournalist. The ad closes with, "Truth is hard to find, worth pursuing." Very, very well done ad.
And it's on a lot, and it's really quite an extraordinary effort. And then you also see the streaming, Truth is hard, truth is this, truth is the whole campaign that they have. They're really running that a lot at many times of day, at least in this market, and I'm pretty impressed with that. Another ad that I'm impressed as hell with, and is the Heineken ad, which is both political and smart. It's part of their Open Your World. That's the hashtag campaign. It's the exact opposite of what you would think of as a beer ad, and it's certainly the exact opposite of the Kendall Jenner ad for is that her name, Kendall? For Pepsi. And the premise of the new ad is really simple. You get two people who disagree totally on various topics, politics, gender, and you force them basically to talk to each other. And so you put them in a room together, and you end up having them talk it over a beer. And when they listen to each other, their minds are changed, and it's smart and it's well done in every way. We'll have it on the website, and it's basically a very credible and important story. And what I hope is that it's the start of smarter advertising in general, instead of some of the really ridiculously stupid stuff that we're bombarded with now.
Well, speaking of smarter advertising, I have another close to home story. This comes from a business in St. Paul, Minnesota called Willie's American Guitars, and I noticed this I follow them on Facebook. I noticed this on my Facebook feed. They are located in St. Paul, Minnesota. As I said, they're next to Snuffy's, which is a malt shop where I get my cherry phosphates. It's fantastic. Anybody in St. Paul should go there. And while you're there, stop by Willie's. But Willie's American Guitars sells only vintage American guitars. It's a candy store for guitarists like me. It's where I got my Les Paul, that sunburst guitar there on the wall. I bought that at Willie's American Guitars. It is the guitar store that A-list names come to when they're visiting, when they're in town on a tour. And they've started recording short videos for their Facebook page of Willie, the owner, discussing one of the guitars they recently have in stock. So one of my favorite videos is him talking about a 1974 Gibson ES 355 hollow body electric guitar, much like the other guitar on my wall, except that's not a Gibson. That's nowhere near as good as what he was talking about. Walnut finish, beautiful bindings on the F holes, a tremolo bar. It's just a very, very smart tactic from a guy who knows guitars in and out. And this, it's the type of video that guitarists just salivate over because, oh my God, I totally want that guitar.
So which one did you buy?
I bought the one with the sunburst design on the that's a Les Paul.
Some night you'll play it for us, huh?
Well, someday, yes.
Yeah.
I don't have time to tune it tonight, so.
Okay, well, you get it tuned up for next week, okay?
Maybe.
So speaking of of wonderful videos, somebody named Karina Hussey has created this absolutely hilarious Barbie parody video, and it's all about New York City commuting, which is nothing like you're commuting in Shasta, Minnesota, I promise you. And so she comes up with, the Barbie comes with a Starbucks cup. It actually spills. She has a heavy water bottle that holds practically nothing. She has a power bar, a coffee-stained New Yorker magazine, headphones, a Strand bookstore bag, and then it says MetroCard sold separately, subject to random fare hikes. And they're talking about, how you can take any train except the L because it never comes. And then they're talking about somebody else, and they say, oh, she'll never move because she'll never have the 40 times the rent that you need to have. And it's like such inside jokes for New York City. And I just sat here like laughing out loud. I watched it 6 times. And if you want to know what it's like to live in New York, you watch this little video, and it's of course gone viral because it's hilarious. And there was a time when Mattel would sue you for stuff like that, but somewhere along the line they seem to have caught on to the fact that this might help their brand.
Maybe they were paying attention to Lego because Lego has a lot of people making videos with Legos too. So that's fantastic. I came across another great video ad. This on Facebook too. This is from a Nissan promoted Facebook post ad that I saw, and it's taking advantage of the current interest in the latest Star Wars movie. So the ad is titled "Battle Test: A Star Wars Rogue One 360 Experience," and what it is a 360 video that allows you to virtually test drive the 2017 Nissan Rogue in the Star Wars universe.
That's great.
So you're driving through a battlefield filled with warring stormtroopers and battleships and at-walkers, gunfires and explosions all around. And the car's collision detection system anticipates explosions and military vehicles in your way and takes evasive maneuvers to avoid them. So it's a very cool and fun way to demonstrate that feature, while also, it's kind of hijacking the popular awareness of the new Star Wars movie. So very cool, and we'll have that in the show notes.
That's very smart. That's really very smart. So I am out of good news. How about you?
I got a few more.
Okay,
LinkedIn. I discovered this just the other day. LinkedIn was recently bought by, or not long ago, bought by Microsoft. And Microsoft started to integrate LinkedIn into stuff. I didn't realize this, but I searched for somebody's name in Bing, and along popped up one of those knowledge graph boxes that you see in Google a lot but this was the person's LinkedIn information.
Really?
So Bing is displaying kind of knowledge graphs for name searches, drawing from LinkedIn profile data. If you search your name and your employer in Bing, if you've optimized your profile, you'll get a card with the right-hand side and the right-hand sidebar of the search results that includes your name, your photo, your summary description from your LinkedIn profile, link to your profile, your location, your experience, and then also people also searched for profiles. So when you're on LinkedIn, you often see associated with someone's LinkedIn profile, other people search for, people also search for other people and they're associated with the profile. So we'll have a snapshot of what it looks like, but you can try it yourself, obviously, in Bing. And then also, LinkedIn finally got retargeting. So they're the last major social network not to have retargeting features, but that's finally come along. This is from a PR Daily article by Becky Winchell, and they call them matched audiences. So you can now target through LinkedIn advertising visitors to your website, people who have visited your website. You can upload a list of LinkedIn accounts that you can target, and you can also upload your email list and target your people who are LinkedIn who are on your email list. Plus, they have data integration APIs, so now you can kind of seamlessly integrate tools like Salesforce with your LinkedIn advertising. So that's a significant development for LinkedIn ads and social media advertising.
One of the things that they need to get rid of is that ability to email everybody through LinkedIn, because it's annoying as hell and it's just spam. So if it's used correctly, maybe, but nobody's using it correctly as far as I can see.
Yeah.
So I noticed something this week in YouTube, and that is that I was looking at it and I was seeing how many views in Facebook and how many in YouTube side by side. I didn't see it all week. I saw it certain times during the week, but I thought that was something really interesting, and I don't know, I hadn't heard anything about that rolling out, but I mean, I looked at a video, for example, that it had, I'm trying to remember which one it was, but it had 14 million views on Facebook, and it had something like 6 million on YouTube, because as we know, LinkedIn hijacks YouTube traffic. But anyway, that was an interesting comparison. Facebook, is that what yeah, you were talking about LinkedIn. Facebook hijacks, right. But it's an interesting new feature. Got to keep an eye out and see what's coming.
I also noticed, speaking of YouTube, viewing a video and noticing one of our recently completed podcasts before we'd optimize the video in the suggested videos. So all
you mean like from the event as opposed to from
I was watching an unrelated a video that wasn't our podcast, and in the suggested video, our most recent, it was like the moments after we recorded our video for the podcast, and noticed that in the suggested video, our podcast that night appeared in the suggested video. So it wasn't optimized. And what that tells me is Google is really getting very good at understanding the content of video, because we didn't provide any metadata for that video
point,
yet.
Right, we do that after the fact. Wow, that's really interesting. So any more good news? Because I'm done.
Let's get on to the worst stuff.
Okay, well, you know, the ongoing epic PR fail of United Airlines. This week, the CEO was doing all the morning shows and, you know, saying how awful this is and how we're going to fix it. And now we're going to give everybody $10,000 and blah, blah, blah. And out comes, from the Freedom of Information Act, reports released there where one of the officers saying that he used minimal but necessary force on the United passenger. And then there was news that there had been a settlement with Dr. Dow, and that I guess he was happy with it. But then on Thursday morning on the Today Show, Munez said, "Sometimes we forget that we are transporting actual people who have plans and hopes." Well, you should really stop forgetting that, you know? And then on Tuesday night, apparently one of the biggest rabbits in the world, this gigantic rabbit that's like 4 feet long, died in midair under mysterious circumstances. That's been really downplayed. And then when I tweeted, just when you thought it couldn't get worse, I tweeted it, and the first tweet disappeared. So I retweeted it, and that stayed there. So some of the United tweets are still getting removed, and some are not.
I wonder if Twitter has a bot that's deleting United tweets. Speaking of Twitter bots, I came across a fascinating article, Mother Jones by A.J. Vicens, about Twitter's bot problem. So the framing of the article is, the context of the article is Twitter's role in influencing the presidential election. And they cited cybersecurity expert Thomas Rid, who identified for the Senate Intelligence Committee 3 unwitting agents, quote unquote, of Russian efforts to influence the American presidential elections. Among them, WikiLeaks. I don't know that they're so unwitting, but WikiLeaks. Journalists who aggressively covered the political leaks while neglecting or ignoring their provenance. And then Twitter, because of the fully automated bots as well as the semi-automated spam and trolling accounts that make up a sizable portion of Twitter's active user base, end quote. Emilio Ferreira is a research assistant at the University of Southern California and has studied Twitter bot networks and their effects on the election using sentiment analysis. His team studied bots supporting both Trump and Hillary Clinton and noticed a difference. The Trump supporting tweets, whether produced by bots or humans, were significantly more positive than Clinton supporters, than that of Clinton supporters. The manufactured positivity can, quote, bias the perception of the individuals exposed to it, suggesting there exists an organic grassroots support for a given candidate, while in reality it's all artificially generated, end quote. So using tools to estimate whether an account is a bot or not, Ferreira and his team estimated that nearly 15% of their data sample collected over a 1-month period, roughly 400,000 accounts, were likely bots, accounting for 3.8 million tweets. Twitter didn't respond about how many accounts are bots, not surprisingly, and how many tweets they produce, but it raises some really big questions. Like, should we expect, one, American companies, Twitter, in a global economy, to be loyal to American values and ideals like the integrity of our democracy? Should we redefine punishable speech? So should the clear and present danger standard of yelling fire in a crowded theater be expanded? I think companies are going to have to start grappling this. We as a society are going to start grappling with some of these issues.
Well, they also announced this week that they had taken down many thousands of bots, and that they had gotten rid of a whole bunch of accounts. And interestingly, this week, Facebook took responsibility for being actually a media company at this point in time, and they said, whereas before, Mark Zuckerberg said, he kind of shrugged it off, oh, I don't think we had a big influence on the election, and now he's saying, yeah, I guess we did, and I guess we do have responsibility, and Twitter is saying the same. So I think it's clear that this is a societal issue for us at this point, and that all of our social media outlets have to take a look at what is happening here and stand up and do something about it. But Twitter also announced, very interestingly, that they're going to have something that they call Twitter TV, and they are going to, I didn't put this in the show notes, but they are going to have 24/7 live TV, which ultimately I'm sure is going to lead to them producing live content of their own. But it's going to be kind of not what's on the networks, but sort of, next level kind of stuff, more indie kind of stuff, more, kind of edgy kind of stuff. And that's going to start pretty soon. And one of the things that also happened this week was that Twitter's stock went up because of that announcement and because of the bot thing. And so I think that Twitter is being redefined by investors at this moment as a news source and less as a social network than it is as a news source. And I think that the developments are interesting that have happened in the past week.
Well, they better hurry up and clean up some of their problems because they're going to quickly lose credibility if people don't, if a significant portion of their user base is actually bots that are trying to manipulate us.
Well, same
That's a
thing's happening
problem.
on Facebook, and they have to deal with that
Right.
as well.
And Facebook seems
So,
to be actually, having come to Jesus moment. So I don't know that Twitter's there yet.
well, I think they are. Okay, so where does that bring us?
New stuff, new tools,
Oh,
new
well, I don't think
objects.
this is brand new, but it's new to me and it was very cool. PayPal has something that allows you to claim a link with your own name on it. So mine is paypal.me/BLOchman. And if I then wanted you to, you can put that on your website, your social media profile, and your emails, on your invoices. And what happens is that all that anybody has to do is click on the link. So I got this story from Joan Stewart, the publicity hound. And so if, for example, you were selling something, maybe you're selling something that's $300, you would say it would be BL Ochman /$300. And then when you clicked on that link, that would automatically be credited to that particular sale, which is a really interesting development, I think. And I guess it's been around a while, but I claimed my name. You should claim yours. And then it gives you this little screen which has your profile on it, and you can talk about your business or about your products. And it's a very helpful thing. It works on mobile. It works on any device.
Very cool. I'll have to try it out.
Yeah.
This is not a new tool but I have been using it for a while and never talked about it, so I might as well. Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog is
Love the name.
it's software that you use to do technical. Often web developers, SEO people use it to do technical website analysis. What it does is it crawls the website. You feed it the URL, and they'll crawl the website and suck all the URLs out of the website and categorize it and index it. So I use it for like site redesigns to see how a site is structured. Search engine optimization, I'll use it for projects, and competitive research too, to see how competitors' websites are faring, how they're designed, and what they're doing well in search and everything for technical reasons. But you can use it to discover incoming links. So if you're doing link building campaigns, it's great for that. Identifying error pages. So if you have a high error page rate on your 404 error pages on your site, that's a negative ranking factor in search. So understanding what those pages are and going around to fixing them. It'll show you duplicate titles. So you have pages with duplicate titles. Again, that's an SEO thing you want to fix. Pages with too long titles that are 65 or more characters, 65 plus characters long, that get truncated in search. As well as meta descriptions that are too long that do the same. There's a free version, but you can't export the data. So the single user license costs £149, whatever that is.
I forget whether that's more or less than dollars at the moment. I don't know either. I have to really give a shout out to Backup Guard today, because I had a website catastrophe this week, and they went really above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that it got back up. And if you don't know what Backup Guard is, it's backupguard.com, and that is a way to back up your site in the cloud. You can FTP it, you can put it into Google Docs, you can keep it on your computer if you want to clog up your hard drive. But it's a really affordable and excellent solution. So talking about cool things, the Postal Service, of all things, the most uncool service on the planet, has just released a first of its kind stamp that changes when you touch it. And it's a stamp, the Total Solar Eclipse Forever stamp. And what's going to happen on August 21st is that, and they have a hashtag Eclipse stamps. On August 21st, there's going to be an eclipse that for the first time since 1918 can be seen in the whole United States. And so it has a narrow path across the whole country, and it's a rare event. We haven't seen anything like this in the mainland U.S. since 1979. And when you touch it, it basically shows you the stages of the eclipse, which is so
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a. We'll have it on the site. It's really cool. NASA announced it. Like that's.
Awesome. How do they do it?
I don't know. It's heat sensitive, kind of like a mood ring used to be.
There you go. Moon stamps.
The moon. That's what it is. It is a moon stamp. Yeah.
Nice.
That's what we have. That's all
So,
I have.
all right, let's wrap this up. Daily numbers. Podcasting 2017. Edison Research is out with their annual numbers on. They have an infinite dial report that they've been doing forever about audio media consumption, and they pull out the podcasting portion of it and do a podcast report every year from that. So, without further ado, here the number: 60% of Americans are familiar with the term podcasting. That's up from 55% last year and 22% in 2006. 40% have listened to a podcast. 24% have listened to one in the past month. 15% have listened to one in the past week. Weekly listeners listen to an average of 5 podcasts. 56% of podcast listeners are men. 77% clicked on and listened to podcasts immediately, compared to 41% who downloaded and listened to them later. And podcast listeners subscribe to an average of 6 podcasts. We'll have the full report embedded on the show notes at BeyondSocialMediaShow.com/185.
So that brings us to the end of episode 185 of the Beyond Social Media Show. And for those of you who are new to us, please take a look at BeyondSocialMediaShow.com, which is where you will find the archives of all 185 of our shows, along with what we call the show notes, which are links to everything we've discussed here. And if we're talking about a video, you'll see the video on our blog. And our co-host here, I'm BL Ochman. On Twitter, I am at What's Next. I blog at whatsnextblog.com. On YouTube, I am What's Next Blog. And on Google+, I'm BL Ochman, as I am on LinkedIn. David Erickson is on Twitter as D. Erickson and also as The Daily Numbers. And he blogs at eStrategyBlog.com and trends.eStrategyBlog.com. And on YouTube, guess what? He's eStrategy. And the show is BeyondSocialMediaShow.com. On YouTube, we're Beyond Social Media Show. We're on Google+. We're on iTunes. On Twitter, we're BS Media Show. And on Stitcher, we're on iHeartRadio. We're on Google Play. And come to our blog and you'll get the show notes and everything we talked about tonight, plus the videos that we discussed and a whole lot of information. So we thank you so much for watching tonight. We'll be back next Thursday, and we'll be back at 8 o'clock next Thursday night. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.